Welcome. Talking stacks here now for week 10. You got Ricky Sanders, you got Jim McCormick leading you through the way. Before we get started, as per usual, though, got to remind you to check out rotocurve.com, promo code curve, save $2 on a weekly membership. That's right. You only pay in 5 instead of 7, which is quite the value. And you'll be getting things like DFS tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone. You get position rankings, projections, cheat sheets. You get optimized lineups. You get access to player ownership percentage after the Thursday night kickoff. So again, promo code curve on rotocurve.com. You want to check that stuff out. You're already late to the party if you missed out. Jim, we've already talked quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. Now we got to connect all the dots. What do we like this week for tournaments? What stacks are we using?
Yeah, the equation kind of works out that you add some of these values up and you get a stack. I like Cutler and Alshon, obviously. I just think, it's a good setup against, what could be a fun offensive game in terms of, Tampa, like you said, giving up 29 points a game, pretty generous. This is a Tampa team who has made Case Keenum look good at home, here in Tampa. They've made, obviously, Derek Carr threw for 1,500 feet, which is a lot of feet, 500 yards. So, and then, obviously, I didn't mention him. You covered him, but I really do actually like the Wentz and Matthews stack. I think if you want to be really contrarian and you did like a Wentz Aguilar stack or throw them both, if you really want to be contrarian and think that the Eagles score, 27 points but lose, it doesn't that's what I expect. I think they would lose in a shootout. It's interesting to have multiple shares of that Philly offense. Even a Wentz Ertz isn't so bad. It also sounds kind of weird. But yeah, I also like Carson and Nelson. We talked about Carson Palmer. I'm a little bit more on going Carson with JJ Nelson and taking a little bit of a risk in a tournament setup than Fitzgerald, just because I think there's the price for Fitzgerald is still pretty high compared to what else you can get. For example, Alshon's $1,000 less than him on DraftKings. That's a massive number between two players who should have really similar outcome patterns.
Yeah, they're the exact same price on FanDuel.
Yeah, there you go. So there's this huge gap on DraftKings. So obviously that's a site-specific kind of fade. But and then also if you're playing the Monday game at all, I really like Dalton. I don't even mind doing Dalton and Green. If you want to save money, Dalton and Eifert. And then for Thursdays, this Browns team is so bad. I talked about Flacco at the beginning of the season. This is the only other time I'm going to mention him this year, I promise. But it's Flacco and Smith, I don't mind it at all, especially because of the volume. Even coming back from his ankle injury last week, Smith had 9 targets, ran the most routes, played the most snaps. I know the 95-yard touchdown goes to Wallace, but still, especially in these full PPR leagues, like you talked about his floor, I like that setup. So those are some of the stacks I like, particularly, combining Carson with the upside of Nelson and then Cutler with I think Alshon is Alshon again as long as he is Cutler.
Yeah, and if we expect it to be a full blowout, and this is kind of dating back to last year when I used to write for Fantasy Draft, I'd write the recap of tournaments after the week was over. I do kind of a what we learned. And what we learned was that a lot of these big tournaments were won by offenses that were concentrated is the word I was looking for. So, a lot of times like the Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown stacks would win tournaments because Le'Veon would catch so many passes, Brown would too. One of them scored, maybe each of them scored a touchdown. Then you're talking, 25, 30 points from each. Well, I think if we think Philadelphia is going to be that kind of shootout this week, I think Devontae Freeman and Julio Jones could be that sort of stack. And you could even go, full blown, go Carson Wentz, go Jordan Matthews, and use those guys. And now you got, a game that we think they're going to be going back and forth. That's thinking outside the box there.
It is.
I think there are some other possibilities like Lamar Miller and Allen Robinson. If we think that game, the offenses are going to be concentrated around those two guys. I mean, they're different teams, but if we think, one team's going to stick to the run, one team's going to stick to the pass, we can go that route. Yeah, exactly. there are some other options. I mean, I think that everyone's really scared of this Dallas team, but Roethlisberger, if he is healthy, is a little scary of a proposition if you're using this Dallas defense. I do think there is a shot that, Big Ben to Antonio Brown is the way to go. There is a little shot that it's Le'Veon Bell Brown, although I don't think that's the route that I will be going this weekend. You did mention that Carson Palmer, J.J. Nelson. I like that. I like another concentrated stack would be Jordan Howard, Alshon Jeffrey. I think it's going to be one of those weeks. I do like Zach Miller a little for tournaments as well, but I think the offense this week is going to be, pound the ball and then throw it up to Mike Evans, which is kind of, they're facing Tampa Bay. That's kind of what Tampa Bay usually does. That's their style, right? When Jacquizz was healthy, they were pounding him and throwing to Mike Evans. Right. Exactly. So I think there's definitely a possibility they do that. And the last one is, I kind of like to go against New Orleans every single week. So I think if you're going, Trevor Siemian, or you're thinking about going one of the wide receivers, you might as well just go, all in. This New Orleans defense gave up, 400 yards passing almost to Colin Kaepernick. I think it was 398. So if Kaepernick can do it, who's one of the worst throwers around, then I definitely think Trevor Siemian can at least be, adequate. I like both the receivers. I'm with you. I think Demaryius Thomas would be the one for tournaments. I think, a lot of more people will be on Sanders because he's been the one to this point getting most of the red zone targets. But, Thomas kind of projects well in this one. Do we miss any of the stacks this week? Are there any other ones you like?
No, I mean, I think one would just be if you're interested at all in Phil Rivers at home here, it's not a bad setup. And I think, Tyrell Williams would be the way to go. If you eliminate the Denver games for him, he's a wide receiver. He's a high-end wide receiver too. And I think what people look at is they look at his average and they say, oh, he's a wide receiver 3, or he's, or you look at his pattern and you see these games where he's had 5 points and 4 points, and it throws you off his trail. You think that's variance. Well, the only variance is his schedule. I mean, he's playing Aqib Talib twice in those matchups healthy. So, and that was in that, wasn't that kind of like concentrated time where it was a Thursday night and then, 2 Sundays later. So it was a really close little packed time. And I think that's burned into people's memories, recency bias wise. So that's an interesting one. I think I actually don't even mind if you went Gates, Tyrell Williams, Rivers. I think you'd have the majority of their passing game.
Yeah, and one I want to talk about is Rashard Matthews and Marcus Mariota, because they're kind of newfound lovebirds, I guess, because Mariota keeps targeting him, and if he really has an ankle problem, I mean, we're talking about a guy who hasn't rushed for more than 3 attempts in the last 3 weeks, and he's managed 17.7, 19.9, and 31.9 DraftKings points, and that's even with one of the weeks he only threw 30 or 22 pass attempts. So he really doesn't even have to, get up there with the volume. But the guy he's clearly looking for in the red zone is Rashard Matthews, who scored 2 touchdowns last week. The stat that I found that was pretty amazing is he's been targeted 6 times in the last 5 games in the red zone. He's caught 5 touchdowns. So they're pretty much on the same page here. And if you like going against this banged up Green Bay secondary, I would say if you go Matthews, you should probably go Mariota too, because obviously Green Bay, we expect their offense to do pretty well. So the Titans offense, we'd expect to go back at them. So that was the final one. I just wanted to throw that stat out there. Any final words of advice this week, Jim?
No, but just speaking about that Mariota setup, I mean, the Packers produce pressure, but one, Clay Matthews is banged up, one of their better edge rushers, and then the other thing is how effectively Tennessee can sell the play action. They run they're top 5 in play action sets, and then or plays, and then Green Bay has given up I think the 4th most yards on play action passes this year. So it's kind of a nice setup. And that a lot of that has to do with the fact that if you have a bad secondary, they're more than likely, bad at taking the bait, right? So you're dealing with a subpar secondary, and he's got multiple touchdowns in 5 straight games. To pull an awesome name out of the hat, Billy Volek in 2004 was the last Titans quarterback to do so. So he's been really efficient. Mariota, I think the sample size is growing that Mariota, even when the volume's not up there, is just a really fun fantasy quarterback.
Right. And let's end it there, because that's a good spot to end it with Marcus Mariota, who hopefully will be winning some people some money this week. But before we go, got to let you know, once again, rotocurve.com. Use promo code CURVE to save $2 on a weekly premium membership. You get rankings, projections, cheat sheets, must-have tools like DVP, points per attempt, red zone. You get optimized DFS lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. You get access to player ownership percentage. So don't miss out on that. That's all for us this week. Good luck. Week 10. Hopefully this will be the week you win the million. We will see you next week.
Peace.